Hey y'all, I'm your host Tamaje, and welcome to another episode of Rewatch, a podcast where I binge your favorite shows as fast as I can. This week we are recapping season 2 of FX's Snowfall. I just want to start off by giving a huge shout out to my YouTube listeners. You guys have been bringing in the numbers like I've never seen before, so thank you so much. And please make sure you're subscribed over there because y'all are carrying the whole team. All right, y'all. Well, I'm going to say it. Season 1 was trash compared to season 2. But you can kind of say that about like every show in the world. Anyway, all right, let's get into it. And because this is my show, obviously there will be spoilers. Now, because I'm binging the show, for the most part, I noticed a thing that I thought was cute. Well, y'all probably won't think it's cute, but I think it's cute. Anyway, in the season 1 finale, as the final scene is happening, California Dreamin' is playing. Not the Mamas and Papas version. I'm actually not sure what version of the song. It's more bluesy or whatever. And then in the opener of season 2, a different version of California Dreamin' is playing too. Again, not the Mamas and Papas version, but it's really good. I also have a story about the Mamas and Papas if you guys ever want to hear that. But anyway, back to the story. I just personally thought it was really cute, like an open and close. Like here's how it ended. Here's how it's beginning, with the same type of vibe, and I kind of like that. About 4 months have passed since season 1, and Teddy is in his apartment watching the outcome of his secret government-sponsored war in Nicaragua on TV. Lucia and Gustavo are running their drug business with Pedro, who is MIA. They buy their coke from Teddy, by the way. Franklin is now killing it in the crack game, and he is buying his coke from Avi. Low-key, I feel like there's a lot going on in this episode, so it's okay if you can't keep up. But in case, the episodes are on Hulu, so you can always just, go and watch for yourself. So I feel like most of what happens in the season, like, all stems from what happened in this episode 1. So we see two rancheros waiting at their truck for a coke delivery to get dropped. And by dropped, I mean literally dropped in a field, and they're going to go run and sprint and pick up the cocaine bricks. Anyway, as a result of the plane being late, Luisa goes off on Teddy because she didn't receive her drugs. And Teddy's trying to apologize for wasting their time, even though he allegedly contacted his Colombian contacts and they said they made the drop. It didn't happen. Franklin comes home to his mom's house to drop off some food for her. While he's there, he sees like a ton of unopened overdue bills, like, the pink ones, and he takes them with him. But as he leaves on the way out, he notices his birthday gift all wrapped up, but he doesn't take it. Just, he hasn't spoken to his mom in all this time. Franklin goes back to his aunt and uncle's house where he's been living since he left his mom. He gets there and there's a little shindig going on and everybody's there. Leon's there hanging with his new girlfriend, Wanda. She'll be important for later. Kevin is vibing with some ladies, and Franklin has a girl eyeing him too. He's later in his bedroom having some adult time with this girl, and in the middle, there's a loud banging outside the bedroom. Turns out Jerome is banging on his bedroom door as he discovers Kevin getting it on with the two girls from earlier in his bed. Franklin and Leon sprint out of their respective situations and they see Jerome going off on Kevin, and he starts whooping him with the belt while chasing him around the house as they're all laughing at him. I was cracking up as this was happening. It's really funny. Teddy, back at his office, gets a phone call from his handler, James, and James breaks the news to Teddy that Congress will not approve the funds for the war in Central America, which means that the only option is for Teddy to keep funding the fight by distributing this cocaine. He then tells Teddy that he can't even have any access to anything official, especially him. Teddy now has to literally fund this war by himself. Personally, I hate Teddy's storyline. The government has convinced him that he's doing something good, and he's delusional enough to believe it. I'ma just say it. Teddy is a bootlicker. Yeah, he is. That's what he is. Moving on, Franklin and Leon are at Avi's house preparing for the normal deal. Avi calls one of his guys to bring the coke, ready for Franklin like normal. Another guy runs out to alert Avi that the LAPD has arrived, and they surround Avi and his men while Franklin and Leon dip up out there. They run through the back of Avi's yard with a cop chasing them, and Franklin jumps the fence and, he's all good. But Leon, who, got shot last season, can't hop the fence as fast and can't run as fast, so he gets arrested. Franklin is later with his uncle Jerome at the bail bonds place, and the bondsman tells them that Leon will be getting a felony evasion charge. He also says that because Leon has a criminal record, the bail would be set for $50,000. Now, Jerome's loudmouth lets it slip that $50K is essentially chump change. You know how men be talking. Franklin cuts him off by saying, nah, that's kind of steep. We'll have to figure out how we gonna do that. And then when they get outside, Jerome is acting all confused because he's like, we can get the money. Like, why are you tweaking? Like, and Franklin's like, I don't want them to know all my business. And that's how Franklin said. He said business. He said, I don't want them to know all my business, but now they have an even bigger problem than getting Leon out of jail. Where are they going to get more coke now that Avi is in jail? Gustavo and Lucia arrive at a junkyard to make a deal with the leaders of a gang they're trying to sell to or whatever. So she shows them like, a baggie of crack to, make it to the door. And she talks about how, it's coke in rock form and, they're kind of curious. And she's like, it's going to be bigger than heroin. It's almost all over the place right now. And the guy hands Lucia a pipe and he's like, fine, then you smoke it. And, they're like, we want to make sure the merchandise is good. And obviously she hesitates because, it's crack. And, they're like, get out of here. And so instead, she's like, no, wait. And she smokes the crack. She like puts it up to her mouth and they light it for her. And then when she hits it, she like almost passes out. And the guys are like, wow, that's pretty good. And then they all smoke it right after her. I guess that crack was hitting. But remember, crack is whack, kids. Crack is whack. Teddy goes to Kansas City and follows his brother Matt to a bar. And he fills Matt in on his situation. Matt is not down for helping the CIA. But Teddy tells him that he needs a pilot for at least a month or so. So he convinces him to join his team. Franklin, Kevin, and Jerome are outside the police station waiting Leon's bail to go through. And Jerome is tweaking because he don't like being outside the police station like that. Leon gets out of jail and they all leave. Later that night at Jerome's house, some dudes with masks and guns break in while everybody's asleep. Peaches, Franklin's hired security guy, yes, his name is Peaches, catches these guys in the living room and shoots them, and they die in this man's house. Clearly, this ruckus wakes everybody up. While Jerome praises Peaches for, offing the burglars, he wants to know how they got in the house in the first place. Louis thinks that somebody left the back door open, but Franklin sees that the intruders picked the locks. Franklin and Jerome then lift the masks off the dead guys and discover it was Biscuit, one of the bail bonds guys that was there, and his older brother. Franklin snaps at his uncle for bringing up the money in the first place at the bail bonds company for that very reason. Louis breaks it up and points out that someone might have heard the gunshots and called the cop. And Peaches says that he and Jerome will take care of the bodies and bury them while Franklin and Louis clean up the house like it never happened. By morning, Franklin and Louis are still cleaning the house, and Louis starts to get worried about why Jerome and Peaches are taking so long. And Franklin tells her that burying bodies takes time, and she asks him how he knows. And he just doesn't answer the question, but she can tell that he knows from personal experience. Franklin suggested they get bars on the windows, and Louis agrees and says they should do the same for the doors. With Avi in jail, the cocaine is paused for Franklin's team, and now they're officially out of cocaine and only have enough crack to sell for a day or so. So they have to find another supplier. Franklin then tells his crew that he'll have to make the ride to Oakland first thing in the morning so he can visit this guy Swim, who taught him how to make the crack in the first place. And he wants to see if he can probably set up a new pipeline up there. Teddy is back at his office looking at the police files for Avi and Leon. And he tells his brother, aka his new partner, that Avi is facing severe charges in jail. He has bricks of cocaine and no one to buy them, and that he needs to find a new drug dealer. And as he's going through Leon's file, he finds a picture of Franklin Saint. Luisa and Gustavo's packing plant is closed while Lucia is going through some paperwork when she hears a thud in the warehouse. Lucia thinks it's Gustavo, but after he doesn't answer, she grabs her gun and she goes to investigate, and then sees Pedro out in front of her with his hands in the air. After months of ghosting them, Teddy is stalking Jerome's house where he sees Franklin leaving and follows him. After a bit of a drive, Teddy rams Franklin's car off the road. Teddy gets out to check on him, like an innocent bystander and, make sure he's okay. And then he tases the back of Franklin's neck and then chloroforms him. And the episode literally just ends right there. Y'all, this episode was better than most, and I mean most, of season 1. We have some pops of adventures here and there. This episode had everything. Sex, drugs, money, murder, running from the cops, getting arrested. This episode literally ends with a kidnapping. Hashtag season 2 superiority. But obviously, a season can't be perfect because where do imperfections come from? Bad characters. And that's why this season's worst character goes to Kevin. As soon as Kevin was introduced in season 1, I knew this boy would be trash. He's the first one to try both the coke and the crack. Like, hello, red flag city, anyone? This season, though, he's low-key valid in some of his reasoning, and then he just takes it way too far. So what had happened was, not for him. What happened was he was in charge of the corner boys, and he has a couple of guys selling on Mexican turf. And, obviously they didn't like that. So a gang member stabs the boys to death just right there on the sidewalk. And it turns out that one of the guys that was killed was Kevin's little cousin. And that happened in episode 2. So the whole season, he's mad because Franklin essentially just let it go. And he felt really betrayed by that. Franklin tells him that he will try to find out who killed him. But Franklin knew the whole time and didn't tell him. In episode 6 and 7, he makes a deal with Lucia when she's in a tough spot. He teaches her how to make crack, and she gives him the name and frequent location of the guy who killed his cousin. But in episode 8, it's all downhill from there. He decides to kill the guy who killed his cousin himself. Just so happens that the guy is in the park at a visitation with his child, his little 5-year-old daughter. And Kevin thinks that this is the perfect time to kill him in broad daylight at the carousel for some reason. Leon and Franklin try to talk him down, but unfortunately it does not work, and he shoots at the guy. And then Franklin shoots him in the leg. Obviously, everybody in the park is running because somebody is at the park shooting. And then after the shooting, Franklin and his crew are trying to figure out what hospital Kevin's in because, after the shooting, they ran. And, he's got a gunshot wound. They want to make sure their dude's okay. It turned out Franklin nicked his femoral artery, and Kevin bled out right there at the park. And he didn't even make it to the hospital. Now, I'm not saying Kevin's death is his fault because very obviously it is Franklin's fault. He shot him. But if Kevin had just laid low or did this at night, it would not have been that bad. Just stalk the guy away from the park and don't try to kill him while he's with this kid. Don't try to kill him while he's at the merry-go-round. Don't try to kill him when the cops are nearby. What are you doing, Kevin? Worst criminal ever. R.I.P. though. Also, once again, there is no favorite character this season because everybody still sucks. These drug dealers are drug dealing and selling crack to my people. I have no sympathy for none of them. I personally feel like I didn't have a single favorite episode either, to be honest. I think the closest I got was episode 7, and that's because of the wildest fight scene ever. I'm gonna give a short rundown to it. Franklin, Leon, and Kevin are at the movies watching Scarface, and Franklin's feeling inspired. The influence of this film and Black culture will send me down a rabbit hole, so I'm not going to get into it. It would literally be a whole nother podcast series. After the movie, Franklin takes them to the beach, and they share a very warm moment together. Just being there together, looking at the water, looking at the sun, all their problems go away. No drug dealing, no problems, just freedom. Franklin then gets to the point as to why he took them there. He tells them his plans to put them in charge once they start to expand their business, and he intends to build an empire with them beside him. This could send me right back to Scarface, but I won't do that to y'all. Some other stuff that happens, Teddy being watched by the DEA, and it's Pride Month, so I can't not mention our guest star, Nico Annan, but well known as Uncle Clifford of P Valley, playing Laurent. He's hosting a runway night at the club, and I'm talking about him because he's low-key connected to the fight scene. He's congratulating Louis on hosting a successful club night, but Claudia ruins it for her. Claudia's the club owner. She says some horrible things about Louis, and she's clearly offended by it and makes it known. Claudia then reminds Louis that she turned her into the woman she is today. Laurent senses some hostility and just gets up and walks away, child. After the party is over, Louis is still pissed at Claudia after she humiliated her in front of Laurent. Louis expresses how she didn't appreciate how she talked about her past like that in front of her. I guess she used to be a prostitute for her or something, so she's real sensitive about it. Louis attempts to walk away and ensues the worst girl fight I've ever seen. It was so bad. I rewind 5 times because I was cracking up so hard. So Claudia grabs Louis' wrist, saying that she would be nothing without her and that Louis is just a joke to her and she won't have her buttons pushed by some girl she paid for. Louis pushes Claudia on the couch and tries to walk off. Claudia then jumps off the couch and grabs Louis by the back of her hair. This leads to a struggle which turns into a wrestling match on the floor. Louis attempts to get away with even kicking at Claudia. She kicked her in the face. As they get back on their feet, Claudia has her hand around Louie's throat on the bar. Like, she's choking her. She's about to choke her out. And Louie is able to grab a bottle and breaks it over Claudia's head. Louie then finally gets the upper hand as she attempts to shove Claudia off her, but she pushes her so hard that she smacks her head onto the bar and Claudia lands on the floor. Louie then calls Jerome and begs him urgently to show up to the club ASAP. Y'all, I thought Claudia was dead. I ain't even gonna lie. I was like, oh my God, they killed her. And then like somehow we find out that she's alive. But I gotta say, this was the worst fight scene I've ever seen. And it was because clearly there is a stunt actress. Like, that's fine. Stunt fighting is a thing. But just for Claudia. It wasn't like a stunt actress for both of them, just for Claudia. And so the stunt double is a completely different complexion than the actress who plays Claudia. She's got a completely different hairstyle. And the icing on the cake of this is we literally see her face. Like, somebody needs to be fired expeditiously for that one. The editors, the director, somebody needs to be out of a job for that. Like, criminal it was. Now, outside of the fight, oh, I almost forgot to mention Leon's girlfriend from the beginning. Well, she's been cooking the crack for them, but she's also been stealing the crack and selling it on the side, like, for her own money. And then by the end of the season, she is a full-blown crackhead, and Leon ties her to a sink to stop her from doing any more damage. This is the episode where Kevin teaches Lucia and Oso how to make crack. Also, at the end of this episode, Lucia kills Pedro. He was working with the cops to take her down, so she killed him for being a snitch pretty much. I guess I should mention the finale. So I'm gonna just read my notes real quick, but first I'll say this part. Franklin was arrested in the second to last episode for Kevin's murder. Okay, boom, for real now. Franklin goes to jail. Teddy is talking to the DEA chick about his operation. Franklin gets his shoes stolen in jail. Franklin's bail is denied. Ray is also in jail. The guy who Franklin made slit his best friend's throat. Yeah, that one. Franklin gets jumped by Ray and friends. An inmate hangs himself right before Franklin gets jumped by Ray and friends again. Franklin steals his shoes back by beating up the guy who took him. He threatens to kill Ray's family if they touch him again. Teddy has his new DEA friend recant her testimony so Franklin can get out of jail. Franklin gets out of jail. He goes to see Kevin's grave after he gets out. And, I hate this, but the grass was already grown over, like, the funeral was years ago, but that's a continuity problem and I guess not my problem. Franklin figures out about Teddy's real agenda, the one that he's working for the government, and that's literally where the episode ends, and that's where we're gonna end too. Now, I looked ahead just a little bit, and it seemed like the series takes a shift in season 3 and switches up the format a bit or something. So I'm excited to see the changes that happen with that. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for being supportive and listening. Shout out to the YouTube listeners. Again, subscribe. Make sure you never miss an episode. Get that bell on. Make sure you're adding us on the new Facebook page. I cross post through the Instagram, so make sure you're following that. We're at Rewatch Pod, and I think Rewatch Podcast on Facebook specifically. Yeah, just find us. We're the orange circle. Thank you guys for listening. I will see you next Thursday, and it's back to binging. Try and catch me.